You ever wonder what it'd be like if we took the Warrior of Light from Final Fantasy I and turned them into a brooding, brutal barbarian with the heart of gold? No? Just me? That's fine. More Jack for me then. If you have ever wondered that for yourself, then chances are you've probably already played Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, or just Stranger of Paradise since I don't want to circumnavigate the globe every time I mention the title. Since this game is a little newer than the other ones I've covered previously, let me go ahead and give you the obvious spoiler warning. Stranger of Paradise is kind of like a retelling of Final Fantasy I through the eyes of old Jack. Final Fantasy here, except it's not. It's actually a prequel. You know, Final Fantasy Origin. It's in the name and all that. It tells the story of Jack and his friends as they set in motion the story of Final Fantasy I, and it's a hell of a story if you're willing to put aside the camp and just have some fun with it. I won't harp on it for too long, since this isn't a full retrospective or look back at this game yet, but the marketing and internet hype really did this game a disservice in my opinion. Final Fantasy Dark Souls my ass. This game is much more akin to Bloodborne or Nioh if you need your comparisons, but at the end of the day, it very much has its own identity. The story is honestly pretty gripping for as minimalistic as it tends to be, the characters are generally enjoyable, especially this idiot right here, and the gameplay is solid as steel. It's like $40 when it isn't on sale, and it's well worth that price tag if you want an action RPG to kill some time with. With that out of the way, we can set Jack to the sidelines for now and focus on Astos. What? No, why this one? Hold on, let me just jiggle some cables back here, and there we go. Astos, King of the Dark Elves. A throwaway boss in Final Fantasy I to get the name Chaos in the player's mind and to serve as a plot device to get Matoya's eye back. A joke of a boss, really, and one you probably don't think about for more than 10 minutes after you grind him into a fine paste. He, too, gets renovated for Stranger of Paradise so that we can see this deal he's made with Chaos. He serves as the deuteragonist of the game. See? I know big words. And acts as a suspicious guide for the party through most of the story. He's every bit the sneak you'd expect someone who's made a deal with Chaos to be, and it's somewhat hard to trust him when you constantly know that he's offering minimal explanations and being cryptic as all hell, but what other choice do we have? We first meet up with Astos at the end of the Western Keep, the same place we face him in the original title with a new coat of paint paying homage to another title in the series. Seriously, this game is a better homage to the series than any other. Everything about it oozes love for the entirety of Final Fantasy. After taking out the animated armor guarding him in the back of the palace, we are applauded by the Dark Elf. He seems to know our party and greets us by name before any introductions can even occur. Jack is quick to dismiss Astos' exposition, however, and demands information on the crystals, to which Astos responds with more praise, stating that those who are to forge the future mustn't be concerned with trivialities. A bit ominous of a way to phrase it, but we are on a quest to stop chaos and set the world on the right path, so maybe it's just a weird choice of words. We're given the information we seek and pointed in the direction of the Wind Crystal, already departing from the source material and starting with the final crystal of the original game. When prompted for questions, Jack lets his curiosity get the better of him and asks about the supposed deal Astos has made with Chaos, and whether or not that it's true. The elf responds that no, he hasn't made a deal with Chaos, but Jack will. More ominous prognostics, and this time not really excusable by a weird choice of words. He follows up by defining Chaos as darkness given form and purpose, that Chaos blotted out the crystals and that only Chaos can restore them. This is dangerous, however, as Chaos is a monster, and to make a deal with a monster may cost one their lives. Jack, as with all things, isn't fazed. We're then warped off to our locale. At this point, it's evident that Astos knows something, but we don't really know what. Obviously. I mean, that's the point of a secret, but our minds are now running with ideas. For instance, was he being truthful? Up until now, many prominent figures, such as the King of Cornelia and our own party member Neon, have been saying that Chaos is nothing more than a fairy tale to pin the woes of the world on, a boogeyman to unite the people against. But Astos spoke differently of Chaos. He knows something, and we're gonna find out what. Not for a while, though. The game does a pretty good job of letting these thoughts and doubts fester. We don't even see Astos again until we've purged the Wind Crystal of Darkness and follow that up with either the Earth or Fire Crystal. Dealer's choice on that one. When we return to the Flying Fortress, our temporary hub of operations, we find Astos awaiting us with his bats. He warns us of the dark mist that our party has been interacting with, citing that it could drag us into the past or even turn us into a monster. We've witnessed firsthand Jack having memories foisted upon him, but the monster thing makes no sense with what we've seen. Sure, Jack and the others have come out a bit frazzled after having their memories stirred awake, but there's no sign of any abnormalities or issues. As usual, he offers no real explanation and merely states that if Jack were to become a monster, he would merely have the company of a kindred spirit. Calling himself a monster seems a bit harsh, but given the bits of info we have on Astos, it fits well enough that we don't ask questions. Following that, we get our introduction to Lufenia from him, the mechanically advanced civilization that long ago left this world behind and now dumps its refuse, that is, the darkness, into this world. Astos seems to have a bit of a vendetta against them, but the topic is quickly brushed aside and we must make for our third crystal. We're given a bit more time to sit on our questions and concerns as we cleanse another crystal, but upon our return to the tower, Astos too returns to greet us. This time he reveals a bit more of his knowledge by speaking to us of the fiends guarding the crystals. I'm pretty sure the party doesn't mention the fiends to anyone, so him knowing about them feels, again, a bit off. The praise also comes off as snarky, but he gives the party a round of applause before being rushed into an explanation that the pirates of Provoca are angry that we've saved the water crystal for last. Astos tells us not to worry too much as he'll distract them by spinning a long, winding elven tale, and we rush off to handle the water crystal. Not much in this interaction to really hang on to, except for his knowledge of the fiends, but at this point we really can be certain that Astos has a good bit of knowledge on chaos, and next time we meet him, we'll get him to tell us. We clean up the water crystal and then the pirates. The good Captain BK gives us some directions to Astos when we ask, telling us to follow the bats as they're his creations. Doing so leads us to our next dungeon, whereupon we can find Astos at the top being assailed by an iron giant. When we take out the machine though, Jack is once more accosted by memories. This one brings up more questions than answers, however, as the Lufenian in Jack's memories tells him to contact Astos when he's ready for pickup. The two clearly are related in some way, so we can add that to the pile of questions we're about to ask. Our answers come from our party first. We finally learn that we are strangers, warriors whose memories are wiped and stored for later studying so that they can fight without fear of who they are or where they come from. Their answers stop there, however, and Astos can pick up the slack. The elf seems genuinely happy to see us this time and tells us that his job is to monitor the darkness in this world, his eternal duty as he puts it. He promises to answer our questions, but only after we agree to do him a favor and clear out a newly popped up castle full of monsters. We begrudgingly agree to clear that out and any other fresh structures, and accuse him of using us to his own end. He responds to that by claiming that he's only doing what we asked of him. We kill a behemoth real quick and move on from the castle to another structure, a set of floating islands. Once again, we can find Astos waiting for us atop this structure. He tells us we're late, but it doesn't matter as light and darkness are now in perfect balance thanks to us. He then finally offers up answers. When asked who he is, he tells Jack to guess. Jack, as always, does not want to deal with it, but Astos refuses to relent. Jack guesses a Lufenian, to which Astos seems disgusted at the idea of such a thing. After a little bit of a revelation that the bats with him are actually transformed Lufenians, Jack asks Astos to give him a purpose, an enemy to fight. Ever since the drive to kill Chaos vanished, he's been searching high and low, and given Astos' proximity to Chaos, it would make sense that he might be able to rekindle that flame somehow. But he declines. He claims that despite how he would love to help, his heart is too full of anger and sadness to be able to. He asks Jack to answer again, to tell him who he is. Jack responds with the only answer he has anymore, the King of the Dark Elves, and the sadness in Astos' voice is just...
That's all.
Ugh, big kudos to the voice actors here. They did an absolutely stellar job with the delivery. The elf sounds devastated, and the pieces start to fall together. We've learned a lot at this point in the game, and certain things have become more apparent. Our heroes are spiraling on the path of darkness. The crystal Jack holds is always wreathed in black, as opposed to the ones resembling the elemental crystals his friends hold. They've been called agents of chaos, imposter warriors of light, and have been channeling darkness every time they fell an enemy. Jack, very clearly, will be chaos. Astos said as much earlier in the game. We don't get much time to keep connecting these pieces though, as Astos is our next boss. Each boss in this game, with a few exceptions, has a transition to a second phase. Astos is not an exception. When you get him to that threshold, Astos and Jack collide, with Astos seemingly begging, "May this reach you." When the two collide, we get a very brief snippet of a memory of Jack and Astos bumping fists, something that we've constantly seen Jack do with the people he's closest to, that being his party. After, we get a cutscene of Astos' undying rage for the Lufenians transforming him into a great beast, and we learn of his past, a Cornelian elf taken hostage by them and used as an experiment to be reborn as a weapon, one we now have to handle. Once Ultima Weapon Origin, which is a sick boss I might add, is dealt with, we can finally fill in the last of the missing pieces to our little puzzle. First and foremost, this is not the first time that Jack and the others have made this trip through the crystals to maintain balance. Astos was assigned to this world some number of cycles ago to aid them in returning home, and as an organic reconnaissance unit to keep an eye on the world. Throughout the game, we've seen a lot of Jack and his mannerisms, and now in this flashback, we see that several of them are tied to Astos, such as the line, "Nothing a little spit can't heal." Astos was an emotionless creature, made to serve the Lufenians and their purpose, but Jack and the others slowly took him in as one of their own. Jack even eventually put himself in danger to save Astos, despite calling his predecessors stupid for dying for such a reason. Following several cycles and the realization of what Lufenia is doing to this other world, Jack finally recruits Astos for his new plan. To put a stop to the tyranny of Lufenia simply using Cornelia as a dumping grounds for their experiments, and to allow these people to live free. The plan to use chaos against Lufenia, as it's the only thing they truly fear. Jack even offers to have Astos come back with them, as it's his home as well, but Astos denies, as it's against the rules. Jack claims that he'll fight for Astos, but Astos knows as well as we do that Jack will forget, no matter how much he protests. Jack promises he won't, and offers a fist bump, to which Astos just waves and says goodbye. Hope is something that a lot of Final Fantasy games bank on for their story. Hope is a powerful tool that will get you through even the most terrible situations and drive you to the end of your journey. It's something that comes back time and time again and proves itself time and time again. In these moments, Jack became Astos' hope. But what happens when hope fails? What happens when you see that hope disappear time and time again? When your hope forgets you and carries on as if nothing is wrong over and over, when your hope finally breaks and gives way to despair? Well, you get Astos. Astos still believes in Jack and the others, and even admits that he knows it isn't their fault, as it's the Lufenians erasing their memories. But deep down, he still harbors heavy resentment and hatred towards them for forgetting him. I mean, can you blame him? His only hope at ever living a life not as a tool forgot he existed. His hatred is so powerful and deep-rooted that he can't even bring himself to forgive Jack when he realizes and asks for it. Astos and the Lufenians he's enchanted will soon fall and shroud the world in darkness as their hatred is unleashed. He asks that Jack see to these monsters and destroy every last one of them, to which Jack of course agrees. A pained Astos tells us that chaos is born when darkness and emotion become one. Our path will lead us into the very source of darkness, but we must see it through to the end. Astos' final gift is to allow us to proceed. He asks us to punish the Lufenians for their arrogance, and names us the Warriors of Light before fading into darkness. There's a specific line I want to look at. Wherever it rears its head, be there to cut it off. From there, all I can ask is that you follow your conscience. Astos knows chaos because he knows Jack, but he also knows of the beast, Chaos. This at first may sound like a plea to stop chaos and save the world, but that doesn't track when you take into account the line of follow your conscience, does it? No, rather, Astos is telling Jack that when he slays chaos, that he used the power he has gained from the ordeal in a way befitting his hope. Astos is corrupted hope, and what I would consider the birth of chaos. He was the driving force of Jack's plan to wrest Cornelia free from the Lufenians, and he paid dearly for it every step of the way. He saw his friends forget him time and time again. He watched their promise fade into nothing, and despite his efforts, he could not succeed in turning Jack into chaos for quite some time. Even if it was the very next cycle, the pain of seeing his best friend and only hope forget him and all that he stood for must have torn his heart apart at the seams. Chaos is born when darkness and emotion become one. If this is true, then Astos is certainly the birth of chaos, as the darkness put a stranglehold on his emotions. He walked so that Jack could run, and in the end, his hope paid off, even if it had been corrupted. There is a lot more to talk about on this subject, but it would require a lot more of the game to be talked about, and I want to keep this video short as a breather between Final Fantasy 3 and 4. I will absolutely talk about this entire game in depth in the future, but for now, let's just pour a Mega Elixir out for my homie Astos. You may just be the king of the Dark Elves to others, but I'll always remember who you really are and what you did for this world. Take it easy out there, even if all hope seems lost. Even the most tarnished hope is more powerful than giving in to utter despair. Who knows? You might even send your friends to fight the devil and win. Till next time.